I would like to welcome you to our session No More Web App Headaches. I'm Janina.
And I'm Michael, and we're both part of the OpenUI5 development team.
We are both from Germany, and we are very happy to be here at OSCON. So at our session, we will first take a closer look into the number of challenges while developing well-designed web applications. Of course, we are not covering all the challenges, but we just picked the most prominent ones in our opinion. We will also have a look at some possible solutions for these challenges, and we will have a look at the some good and bad examples, and in the end you will also see some real cool soccer applications. So our goal is to build a soccer application. As you know, we Germans are really crazy about soccer, and I think it got also a little bit more popular this year as the United States won the Women's World Cup, so we thought this is maybe a nice use case. And our goal is to implement this application, and we would like to have the information about the match days, also about the teams and the results. So therefore, I would like to know on what devices this application should run on. I already see a lot of laptops here, so no need for this question. But to get a quick overview, I would just like to you to raise your hand. So who of you owns a tablet or uses a tablet? Okay, that's more than half of it. And who of you is using a smartphone? Okay, almost everyone.
Cool. Can we do a quick check on the operating system as well? So who of you guys using Android devices? That's maybe half. And what about iOS? A little bit less, but still a lot of people. So cool, thanks.
Okay, so that's almost the statistic we also see here. So on the left side, we see the devices which are mostly used to search the internet. So the laptop is the leader with more than 90%. Then we have the smartphone, tablet, and game console. But we should also take into consideration that there are more emerging devices. So we have a smart TV with over 30%. And we have also the smartwatch and the smart wristband, which is getting more popular. So it would be really great if our soccer application would run on all these devices. And Michael asked you about the mobile operating system. So this is pretty much the picture we saw here in the room. Mostly mobile devices are using Android OS, followed by Apple. But also we should not forget about BlackBerry and Windows Phone if we really would everyone using our application. And if we combine now already these operating systems with the possible devices we saw in the beginning, we already have a lot of possible combinations where our application should run on. So this is really a lot of work to do. And therefore, we chose the approach to write one HTML5 application, and this is based on our own experience. And also, if you ask developers, 70% would answer that they rather would write one HTML5 application instead of writing either one native app or multiple native apps. So this is why our session focused on the web applications. Of course, you can do it in a different way, but this is where we will talk about today. And if you would like to use native features from the devices as well, you could wrap your HTML5 application in Apache Cordova, and then you have access to these native features as well. Okay, now we will come to the challenges. So there's really a lot of things going on if you want to develop a well-designed soccer application with all the possible combinations we saw. We will not talk about all the challenges, as I said before, but again, in our opinion, about the most prominent ones. So I'm not sure if you ever thought about screen sizes in this way. An iPhone 5 actually fits 49 times into a 28-inch screen, and this is really hard how your application should look like that it's still good and usable in both use cases. So your app should somehow be able to adapt to all these screen sizes. And it's not like we have only one screen size for laptop, one for tablet, one for smartphone. If we have a look at this statistic, on the left side you see all possible Android screen sizes, and on the right side we see iOS. So there's really a lot of stuff going on. And how you can cover this is you could, for example, use a grid system. So you can use a responsive grid layout. You can define then media queries. In this picture we see small, medium, and large screen, and then you would arrange your application differently So in this example on the large screen, we see we have the top element, which is going about all the columns, and then we have two bigger items placed next to each other, and on the small screen, almost everything is stacked underneath each other. So you can react then on the different screen sizes and arrange it like you would like to have it. And now we're going to have a look at one real application. Okay, so this is the United States soccer team, and they are actually using a grid layout. So we have here the top part, which is more like one column, and then we have here, you can see there are like 3 columns next to each other. And if we are now going to resize the screen, then you see now we have like only, oh, sorry. Okay, now we see that there's like only one column, and if we are making it even smaller, then everything is rearranged. And if we're making it big again, then we see we have again the 3 columns and everything we need. Okay. And one other thing you might also take into consideration is we do not only have the different screen sizes, but we also have the 2 orientations. So for smartphone and tablet, you can either use it in portrait mode, but you can also use it in landscape mode. And the way we solved it, if the smartphone is big enough and you're using it in landscape mode, we are showing our application how it would look like on a tablet, because the wider screen is more like you would arrange it on a tablet. So this is just one thing you might also take into consideration. Okay, devices, browsers, operating systems. So there's a lot of stuff going on. And on all these devices or on desktop, we really have a lot of browsers. So the most common ones are like Internet Explorer, Firefox, Chrome, and Safari. And they all have different versions, and we do not know where our application is running on, and that's not even enough. All the browsers support different features. So some support some features never, some support only with version 10, 11 or somewhat, and this is really hard. So you really have to take care of this, but you do not have to solve everything on your own. What you could do is just use a library or a framework which already takes care of these things. So jQuery is one what is doing this for you, but there still will be some things where you need to take care of. So you really have to test your stuff, and not only in a simulating tool, but really on the browser itself, because there you will find much more what is maybe not working. The next challenge we are looking into for our soccer application are different device features. So usually if you run your application on a desktop, you have things like a mouse or a keyboard. But if you're running your application on a phone or a tablet, you have really other device features like gesture recognition. You can take phone calls. You have things like GPS, and you have a camera. So there's a different feature set. And you should really make best use of the available features, but you do not have to support every same feature on every device. And a really prominent example is Amazon. So on desktop, you can type whatever you would like to search. You can use the keyboard. But on a phone, it's maybe really hard to write a really long name, and it's really annoying. So they use the camera, and you can use a barcode scanner. But this opportunity they only provide on the mobile device and not on the desktop. And I'm not sure if you ever opened a desktop application on mobile which really did not adapt to mobile, and when you then try to hit the button, I usually get so annoyed because often I do not hit the right button, or something else is happening, or nothing is happening at all. So this is really annoying. So the controls somehow should adapt to the mobile device, because one size does not fit all. And the important solution here is that you should mobilize and not only miniaturize, which means you should keep it simple. You do not have to show everything. And again, you should really make use of the mobile feature set. And if we have a look again at the soccer application, you can see on the left side, there's the desktop application. We have like 5 columns, and there's all information displayed. And on the right side, we have the mobile application. We have only 2 columns, so we do not show everything. But if you pay attention, the first column actually shows information from the first and the second column on the left side. So these two columns are merged into each other because we think this is important information. And the third column is displayed as well, but the other stuff is not displayed at all because we think on a mobile phone you do not need everything. If you would squeeze everything inside, you could not read it anymore. And for the problem with hitting the button, sometimes you have to have small controls, but then you should at least take care of the touch area so that you have a bigger touch area and that you can actually hit the button even if you maybe hit a little bit next to the button. So then this makes it more comfortable for the user to use your application, and he really likes then your application.
Yeah, thanks Janina for introducing all these device-specific challenges. And in my part, I would also like to talk about the design of the application, because ideally, the web app should be easy to use, should be simple, have a consistent user experience. And that's kind of hard when you have to consider all these different combinations of devices. So what you could do is, for example, say we want to do mobile first. So we really focus on the mobile use cases and build up new functionality based on this very minimalistic use case. So we start with the core functionality that is most important for the application and then gradually increase the functionality for the bigger screen sizes. So this is a major development paradigm, and lots of these guidelines are actually published on our webpage called experience.sap.com/fioridesign, and I'm going to introduce you to a couple of those now. So what would be a really good example about mobile first is, for example, the pull to refresh feature. So you might know this from your native mail application on the tablet or on the mobile device. And it's so much easier on mobile devices to use your finger with a gesture to just pull the menu down or the list down, and then the stuff is refreshing. And you don't even need additional controls to display that. And when we think about the desktop use case, then we just add an additional button to refresh the stuff, or add a keyboard shortcut, for example, and then we can have the same functionality as well. On the right side, you can see like a date input. So for example, if we think about our soccer app, then you could decide to find matches based on a date. And here also it's really convenient to have like a wheel motion to scroll through the different options instead of like searching for it on a mobile phone. But on a desktop, you probably want to type in by keyboard, or you want to use some commands for that, so that it might be easier to display an alternative input control. So this is just a brief excerpt from the mobile first paradigm. It's more about starting simple and building up to more complex applications, but just that you get an idea for this. Okay. It's also really important is that you have a look at consistency, or same things should behave the same. So if you think about a referee app, for example, so you want to track the score of a soccer game, then you have an app maybe with a red button, and every time you push the button, it will update the scoreboard and score a goal. And now usually a web page consists of different pages, and you go, for example, to the statistics page, and there's also a red button, but if you press this one, then actually you will score a red card for the current player. And that's not really cool because it's not consistent. You still think in your head the red button is for the goal, and it just behaves differently across the app. So consistency is coming in many aspects, and you should really make sure that the user is like having a really simple way to interact with your application. So let's have a look on a few ideas how to make this more consistent inside a web application. Well, you could certainly specify certain design patterns. So for example, if we take a look at a dialog, maybe a settings dialog, or to find a player, then you should really make sure that the buttons are actually at the same place and they are labeled the same way. It doesn't really matter if they are labeled like yes or no, cancel, if they are in the header or in the footer area. Just make sure that everything is in the same place so that the user is not confused by like finding the stuff in a different place every time. Then also a really simple example is the classic a link. Underlined text should always be a link. It should not be used for layouting because it really confuses user. This is just a very simple example, but you see where it's going. And also if you talk about actions, when you have interactions with the app, then the main interactions should always look the same and always be in the same place. So here we can decide to do it in the footer area or maybe a menu option in the header It doesn't matter, but it should be in the same place and be consistent. Another thing is visual feedback. So if I have input controls, I want to see what's happening there. And this is kind of a bad example because we have 3 input fields here with 3 different states, but they all look the same. So one I can type in, one I cannot, one is just a placeholder text, but it doesn't give me any feedback on how this should look like. So what would be really better is if we have a defined interaction state for every input control. For example, here we can see an input field or a button, and we can clearly distinguish between the different states. So actually, if we click inside an input field, then we will get an outline. It's a little bit hard to see, though, with the black background here, but I hope you can see it. And if we actually click inside, then we get a different cursor, we get a different interaction mode. And if something is disabled, then we also visualize this by graying out. It doesn't really matter what visual style you choose, it just has to be consistent across the application so that the user knows what's going on when he looks at the screen. Then a web page, usually a web page and a web app also consists of different pages. So you want to navigate between them, but you don't want to surprise the user or provide dead ends in your navigation. So you should behave as a real world example. So if you browse through a magazine, for example, you flip the pages, and you can reference in web applications also to this paradigm. So if we take a look at a screenshot of our application that we will soon show you, then we can pick, for example, a date, then drill down into the matches of the date, and then have a look at the details. And drilling down is usually accompanied with a sliding motion, like sliding from left to right or from right to left if I go back. And this is a really good reference to the real world because it just makes sense that the application is moving and that you control actually what's going on. So there's a lot more. You can, for example, choose to open dialogues, to open new tabs. Whatever you do for interaction is just make sure that it behaves as the user would expect it. Okay. Then if you talk about interaction, the user is triggering some action, like confirming something, deleting something, you would probably want to display him a message indicating that something has happened. And you should always make sure that it's in the same place. So in this example, it's really hard to distinguish between the confirmation and the error message because they are in different places. The symbols are kind of wrong. Color coding is also not the best. So what you want to make sure is actually that it's in the same place and that it has a real semantic to it. So like the arrow is red, there's a warning state, you have some information message, but it's all in the same place and it also behaves the same. And there's a lot of more like message handling types. This might not even be enough to be ideal. So if you have the typical use case, you have like a form, you type something in, then you want to make sure that the error message is actually displayed right next to the input field because the user has to go there anyway and correct it again. So he doesn't want to jump to the top of the page and go there again and correct it. So this might be even better to display it right next to the input field. And if there's a technical error, like with your mobile phone in a non-network zone or something, then you cannot reach the server, then you should really like display a dialog and prohibit the user of continuing because he cannot continue anyway. This might be better for technical errors. Yeah, like general validation, we just seen it. It's better to display this in one place. It's not really related to one UI element, so you just have to make sure it's in the same place. And we also have navigation patterns, like when you go to a page that has been not found, then you might want to display even a new page. Just have to make sure that the user is actually getting back to where he was. So these are typical patterns for handling messages and displaying them to the user. And we have already seen that color coding is kind of important. So let's take a more detailed look about color coding in your application. So I guess barely anybody makes it through to the end without confusing the color and wording on this page here. It's kind of hard because the brain is so adjusted to recognizing color patterns that he doesn't really can distinguish anymore between the words and the colors. And that's also true for web applications where you use colors maybe too much or in a wrong combination. And that's why we want to make sure that we only use colors for like emphasizing stuff, but not really for mostly design and layouting options. So how could this look like in a real web application? Well, we have a color balance. This is one from our soccer app. It's mostly bluish. So we have this blue brand color on the left side that has a different shades, a lot of brighter ones and also neutral tones. And we have this really small, tiny bar that is actually with bright different colors. And we can distinguish those between semantic colors and accent colors. So the semantic colors are usually used for like error messages and status information, things like that. And the accent colors are actually used to highlight stuff. So even those have a semantic, they are not purely used for displaying layout and design things. So that's what you can do for like emphasizing stuff on your application without like only doing it for layout purposes. And then you might want to have an option for the user to configure it for himself, maybe. So he doesn't like the blue, he wants to do red or green or something else. Then you could, for example, use less like a CSS preprocessor and define different branding and color sets. So for example, you define this main color as the top root of the tree, and then you derive different parameters by mixing them with different colors or assigning them to the UI. And you usually only assign the lower parts of the tree directly to the parts of the UI, because then you have the semantics represented by these definitions. And then if you change the top node of the tree to a different color, then everything else in the UI will adapt. And it's just making sure that the UI stays consistent while changing the colors. So I brought you a really bad example for this as well. Don't know who knows this one. It's called Links Cars, and it takes web design to a whole new level. So how do I do it? Okay. All right. Well, I skipped the demo. You can take a look at it by yourself. But it's so colorful and bright that you don't even see the navigation points anymore and the statuses. So this is kind of a bad example for coloring your application. And there's a lot of stuff that you can also check out in this one. So it's really funny to browse. All right. One more thing, last but not least, I want to quickly also talk about typography, because it's also a very important thing. And you can see on this one that we have used a lot of different fonts, and it makes the page kind of hard to read. So if you consider that for a web application, you might also want to define semantics for typography. So normal text is more descriptive, information text, and then you have, for example, an italic text, a more bright one that represents a status or a placeholder text. And you might want to define a bold or more crazy font style for like unread, unprocessed items. So you also use typography, but more in a semantic way to distinguish between the most important elements of the UI. Right, that's for the design challenges. So Janina, do you already have headaches by all these challenges?
Yeah, well, devices, responsiveness, design patterns, everything I have to think of. Well, there's so much to do. Would be really great if there's a framework or a library which would take care of this, and which would maybe do the device detection for me, which would improve development efficiency, which would cover a common design language and a consistent user experience. And as you might do, there are a lot of pills already out there, and we just want to give you a short introduction to a new one. We will talk about OpenUI5. It's an open source JavaScript library. It's mainly using HTML5, CSS, and JavaScript. And it's inside using also other open source libraries like jQuery. And as you might heard, we are two of the developers of this framework. And I just want to talk about the main features really quick. So there are more than 200 front-end controls inside this library. We have predefined layouts and application containers, which might be nice for some of you if you're developing business application. It's enterprise ready, which means there are things like extensibility, internationalization, accessibility, which means keyboard handling, screen reader, and all these things already are taken care of OpenUI5. We have a consistent user experience. We have powerful development concepts inside, like model view controller. You can have data binding either with JSON, XML, or OData, whatever you need in your application. We have different view formats. You can either write your view in XML, HTML, JavaScript, or JSON. And we also provide a consistent user experience. Because this framework was developed for SAP, a lot of user research went into this one, so it's not something only 2 people thought of, so there was really contact with the customer and all the users. And of course, it's free and open source. It's under the Apache 2.0 license, and maybe the most important thing, it's responsive across browsers and devices, which means you only write your application once, and then it runs on all browsers and devices, and the controls adapt as much as possible. And to give you a feeling how an application would look like, so that's our soccer application. So on the left side, we have the match days. We click here, so we drill down. On the right side, we see the information. Maybe that's the nicer one. We see United States won 3-1 against Australia. We want to get more information. We can go inside here. We have all the columns. And you see we have like a consistent user experience. We have the blue colors we saw before. And if we now make it smaller, then it's responsive and it's getting smaller again. And now it's only the 2 columns we saw before. We can click here buttons. We have like icons, and text font is always the same. We want to edit the game. Okay, we cannot edit, so we see here on top the error message because the game already took place. And as we do not have that much time left, just continue. And I think the next part will be done by Michael, because we have maybe a more complicated, or not so simple application, which is not blue, just to give you a feeling that you can really do a lot of stuff with OpenUI5. So you can write custom CSS and all these things.
So this is a larger application, also built with OpenUI5. You realize it looks completely different. It has been customized a lot. It's extended with also custom controls. And this is used for sports coaches to do statistics on their teams, to plan performance of players, to do video analysis of games. I'm just going to show you a couple of quick features of this one as well, so that you can get an impression of how this looks like. So we have this mega menu here on top, where we can select different players and teams. So here we have, for example, the team of Bayern München. Then we have the training schedule below there. Just going to go quickly inside here. We have the player information about the teams. We have the matches that have been previously done. And for example, we also have a training calendar here. Yep. Whoops, sorry. Session timeout. I'm sorry for that. But you know, the coach can assign, like, based on the performance of the players, he can assign exercises to the players. And that's what I quickly wanted to show you here. Is I'm going to a specific weekday, and there we have a tactical training for the team, actually. And there you can see the schedule that the coach can assign to the team. Then we have different exercises. And for example, the goalkeeper gets special training, and we can even sketch here how it looks like. So there's a lot of functionality built into this one, and it's all a web app. It's all working really nicely in this browser application. And we can even do like video analysis of the games. So like we can perform analysis on how the teams are doing. Let me quickly show you this one as well. So we have the so-called match insights here. And there we have a video player, for example. It's also a custom control that we just have built into UI5. And there we can select, for example, the team. And then let's say we want to see the goals of this game. We can just go there and have a look at one really nice scene of this game here inside the web application. Sorry for that. It is not updated.
Vielleicht war deine Session abgelaufen.
Let me load that again to reset. We have a bit of time left, so quickly going to show you this in the end. So we can analyze all kinds of game situations here. We want to have a look at the goals of this game. There have been 4 actually. And the video is streaming probably from Germany, so it takes a little bit for loading. Yeah, but you can see that you can build all kinds of stuff here, and it's really easy to create a consistent web application because it's so many things just taken care of by the framework, and you don't have to worry about everything in detail.
And what is more, maybe also an interesting information, so the German national team used it last year when we won the World Cup, so might be something interesting for the United States as well. It's already used productive from some other German soccer teams.
There you go, let's take a look at this goal. And it's getting hot. Whoa, buffering. And there we go. Oh no. There it is. Right. That's just a quick demo of this really cool tool. And you can see it's very different what you can build with web applications. You just have to make sure that you consider your user and that you build a really consistent and well-designed web application.
Okay. So that's it from our side. We hope that we might solve a lot of headaches for you. So it could be the right pill. Of course, there are other pills as well, but OpenUI5 might be the solution which would go for you. And if you want more information, we also are on the exposition hall. There's an SAP booth, and on the left side you see OpenUI5. So we will there be today and tomorrow for questions. And if you want more information, you can just drop by. We also have stickers in case you liked us. And I think we have like 5 minutes left in case there are any questions. So.
Yeah, that's open Q&A.
Code examples.
Sorry?
Any code examples?
Yes.
We do.
You want to show this?
Yes. Actually, we have a really cool demo kit, it's called. And this is our official homepage. It's called openui5.org. There you can download the stuff. And there's the demo kit as well. So let's. Where is it?
Download. Klick nochmal hoch.
1 second.
Download.
It's here. Sorry.
And then further down. SDK.
So we have a really good SDK with a lot of documentation. There's also code examples here. And if you want to quickly try it out, then the explored application might be really useful for you. So you can go here, and there's all kinds of controls that we have included here. So for example, if you want to see button examples, then we have a page for that. And here there's a code icon, and you can see how it looks like. So this is then the XML view that is set up for the layout. And then we also have the controller that's written in JavaScript, and you can take a look at a lot of examples here.
And you can also download it on the top right in case you liked it, and then you can just try it out and modify it.
Yeah. So writing code is like a mixture between definition in XML templating and writing code in JavaScript for controlling the stuff. And we provide a lot of functionality for data integration, connecting to backend services, so this is quite easy.
Do we have more questions?
How customizable are the breakpoints for the responsive design? You said, are there default breakpoints for like tablets and phones? Customizing?
We have default breakpoints for tablet, phone, and desktop, and also like an extra large screen, but you can also totally customize them on your own. So we also have a responsive grid layout, for example, in this library, and you can modify it like you would like to have your application.
Yeah. I think it's under grid, yeah. So there's grid examples here as well. And this is actually true for most of the features of the framework. So you can use it as it comes, and it's quite easy to use it with the recommended features. But you can customize it in any way. You can add own CSS. You can override properties. You can pretty much overrule anything that we have pre-configured.
I think here was one more question. Yeah.
Have you had to deal with any performance limitations around using HTML5 as the core technology on all these devices, like not being able to take care of hardware, hardware device acceleration?
We have some preload optimization going on. I'm not totally aware of this because this is developed in another team, but you can define whatever should be loaded in the beginning and then the other stuff is loaded later, or if you would like, you can also store it on the mobile device. So depending on your use case, you can optimize it.
There's a lot of old devices though that don't have a really good performance by themselves. So there you really have to limit the content you show. It's not like if you decide to display a really big chart with a lot of data, this might not work on a really old device. So you maybe have to consider not showing it there. But yeah.
Okay, then thanks for your attention. And if you want to get more information, just drop by our booth or check out our website. And yeah, we're happy to give you more information if you need it.
Yeah, thanks a lot.